After a huge build-up and so much hype, the people have made their selection and picked their favorite candidate. But the results are still up in the air, and the verdict for the ultimate winner is still in doubt. No, I'm not talking about the election. I'm talking about the console wars. The new Xbox and PlayStation are going head-to-head right now. But in this episode of the show, we'll look back at console launches of yesteryear. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. This is Wayback Attack.
Welcome to Wayback Attack. I am Brian Grantham, and sitting across from me at the desk is Preston Burt. Preston, are you ready to have a war?
I'm ready to go head-to-head and fight to the finish. I don't think I'm properly stocked for this competition, though, seeing as how you are the one with the system on the desk. But, you know, no worries. I can make it work.
Yeah. Well, I am super excited. Console wars for me, they are always an exciting time, and that has been something that has been persistent throughout my life. I'm not really, in terms of like loving video games and video game consoles and that kind of thing, I'm not the kind of person that thinks, getting behind like Sony or Microsoft or that kind of thing. I'm not that type of person, not that type of fan.
Yeah, you're not Team Sony, Team Microsoft, Team Nintendo.
None of those companies care about you. They care about the money.
Yeah.
And so I always am just like, hey, I want to have everything so I can play every game. Mm-hmm. Like when I was a kid, I used to always, when you throw a penny off a bridge or in a fountain, my dream was always, I want every video game in the world. And so
you've come close to it. You've been able to cycle through a lot.
Yeah.
In your line of work, you get access to a lot of cool things, and you're always trading up and in, and I can always count on Brian to give me the scoop on the latest doodads, any video game, what's good, should I buy this, I don't know, and then he'll always have the newest and best. Just like tonight, we're sitting right here, brand new today. Here, and he's got it. Yeah. What is this version?
This is the Xbox Series X. You can kind of see we don't have a banana for scale, but
we're sitting right next to it.
Yeah, but people don't know how big we are. But it's pretty cool. Like if you're familiar at all with GameCubes, it is the exact same size as a GameCube. If you stuck two GameCubes on top of each other, that's exactly what this is. So it is almost a PC tower.
Here's a soda can for scale. Ta-da!
So, but yeah, in 2 days we get the PlayStation 5, and then this current 9th gen will be underway. So that's exciting.
What do you think about the naming structure they have for this system? Are you okay with it, or do you think it's a little confusing? I think it's a little confusing.
Yeah, so, obviously PlayStation has the easiest naming method, right? Mm-hmm. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The problem with that for Microsoft is 5 is better than 4. So when the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox came out, then the PS3 was obviously going to be the next one. Well, Microsoft couldn't have an Xbox 2 because the PS3 would be better, right? Mm-hmm. And so they knew PS3 was going to be the thing, so they called it the Xbox 360.
I never thought about that, Brian. That's great.
Yeah. As far as the series goes, it is incredibly confusing to talk to people about, and especially for gift givers and that kind of thing, because especially maintaining the S and the X. Like, I understand the S is the base model and the X is the powerful model. Mm-hmm. But, it's still hard. Even like when I'm talking to people about it now, it's still like, I still say Xbox One X on accident because...
Yeah, it's too confusing. I think they've buried themselves with that naming convention. I think it needs to be modified. At least change it so it's not the X and the S. I think it should have like a word after it. So...
Well, if you're talking to people that English is not their first language... trying for them to say S and X is very difficult.
Oh,
and so, you run into that situation a lot. you know, you think about phones, like an iPhone. They have so many different versions of the iPhone 11 Pro, Max, and stuff like that. You know, like I couldn't tell you. I assume the Pro's the best one. I don't know.
Right.
And so like it's a similar thing, right? So the Xbox, ultimately what they should do is just call it the Xbox.
I like the route that Android went with naming their operating systems after candy. So like Kit Kat or whatever. I'm just making Lollipop. I don't know. It's it's a progression because it's alphabetical, but it's very identifiable and it's whimsical. So I'm down for that.
Yeah, the problem with that is if someone doesn't understand that it's alphabetical, then they don't know if Kit Kat's better than Lollipop, right? And so I don't know. It's a tough thing.
They could just be like, Lollipops suck. I want Kit Kat. They taste better.
Like Sony just has it made, and I would have to assume that Sony's not going to get away from their naming convention. They're at some point though it does get ridiculous, like the PlayStation 22. Like who's gonna be doing that? Who's gonna be buying that? But I would say the same thing with Final Fantasy, but they're still going. 16 is the next one coming out. Wow. So I don't know. Who knows? Names are dumb. It would be cool if they just called them what their code names are, because their code names are always awesome.
What's this one's code name?
Oh man, I know
you brought it up.
I know the S was Scarlet, and I can't remember what the X. I don't remember, but the Xbox One X was Scorpio.
Okay.
Right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Project Natal was the Kinect's original name. I think that Project Natal is a cooler thing than Kinect. But I don't remember what the series.
Yeah, I think they should just stick with that kind of stuff because, the people who are in the know are going to know which one's the newest one, and if they don't, they can ask a question.
Yeah.
And it helps differentiate it. But whatever. I'm an old curmudgeon, and that's why we're on this show, because I'm not talking about new stuff. We're going to be talking about old stuff. On this episode of the show, like I mentioned at the top, we're going to be running down some launch days for retro consoles. But before we do, I did have one question back to this. Does this have backward compatibility?
Yes.
Okay. So instantly, unlike a lot of the systems that we're going to be talking about, instantly you already have a huge library available to you because all your old games, most of your old games work. What or how many games are coming new to this system on launch?
Hardly any. At least when you
the new Forza.
No, there's no Forza.
Oh, okay.
If you want to talk exclusives, zero.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that there's got to be some indie title that's exclusive, but the PlayStation's no better. So COVID has ruined all that too, right? So the PlayStation 5, the only console exclusive to PlayStation 5 is a remake of Demon's Souls.
Is it coming? Are any of these coming packaged with the game?
No. So the PlayStation 5 does come with a game called Astrobot Adventure or whatever, and that is really just a tech demo to show you how cool the controller is.
That sounds weak sauce.
Man. Nah, dude, Astrobot's amazing. Did you not play the Astrobot VR game?
No.
Oh my god, that was one of the best VR games ever. But it's a shame because Sony's like kicking that down the road. No PS5 game will have VR support.
Wow.
If you want to play, you can use your PSVR from your PS4, but it only if you buy the PS4 version of that game, right? So like Hitman 3 is coming out soon. That has a VR mode, but you have to get the PS4 version of the game and play that on your PS5 in order to do the VR support.
Wow.
So
I saw someone was bummed that you couldn't stream your PS5 to your Vita anymore. They're like, the dream is dead.
I'm surprised that's not working because Sony did say don't get rid of your PS4s because you can stream your PS5 to your PS4. And so
I guess it's one generation too removed.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the tech should be simple, but Sony hates consumers. So
you're getting this one. Oh, you already have this one. And you're getting the PS whatever?
5.
5? Wow.
I'm excited. I wasn't even going to get either of these consoles. I primarily game on PC. And so to me,
this is just dedication to the show. I mean, Brian is out here spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just so he can have a really cool prop for each episode of the show.
After this, I'm just going to throw it in the trash. So, but I don't know. The everyone says how amazing that controller is, and so I was like, well, I'll get a PS5. And then when I was like,
may I touch this controller?
Go for it. When I was like, oh, I'll get a PS5, and I was like, I might as well get the Series X. So
all right, so this is the new Xbox One. It feels very much like the original Xbox. Well, not the original, but whatever Xbox I have. I have the Xbox One controller. It feels like that, except it has like more grip on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, this is the Xbox controller for me. It's one and done. Like they've mastered. It's the best feeling controller to me. Like as far as what do you call that? Ergonomics.
Yes.
Yes. Whatever that is, it feels the best to me. So I don't know. Anyway, all right. I'm going down to much of a rabbit
I was
hole.
going to say I could talk all day about.
I know.
This,
I know. Yeah. I got to cut it off somewhere. We're going to be talking about retro launch titles, retro launch console systems. Brian, let's get into it. What are we doing?
All right. So. Today, before we get into that, I did want to ask you: have you been doing anything cool? Anything to like a little off topic? Like, is there anything fun happening in your life right now?
Off topic stuff. Let's see. You dropped that on me. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll tell you something that I'm doing, and you
Okay.
can think about it.
Okay.
So, Animation Legends.
Oh my gosh!
Call
we
me.
talk about this every time.
Captain N hit again, or hit. They resupplied with Captain N frames. I've ordered them. I have not received them yet. I'll give everybody an update because I need that mother brain, baby. So hopefully I get a good mother brain picture. So, but that's really it for me. So.
I don't do anything. I've watched some episodes of Star Trek Discovery lately. That was pretty fun.
Okay.
And then my friend's hooking me up with a Transformer. That's the DeLorean, so that'll be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, just whenever I go out, like for errands, I'll stop at the Walgreens to see if they have a G.I. Joe Classifieds figure. I have gotten into a couple of new VHS tapes. I got so like bogged down in that massive lot of VHS tapes that like I burned through. I did a whole box, like of. What I did, I haven't started ripping really any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I find one like while I'm going through it, I'll rip it, like a commercial or something. But basically, I had triaged this 500 tape lot of VHS tapes to just see what's on them because none of the tapes I got are labeled. So I pop them in, see what's on them. Fast forward through the first show, I know it's an hour. Fast forward through the next show, I know it's an hour. I just document what's on them and I put them back and I'm like, I'll hit that later. So
you don't. Oh, do you have like labels that you're putting on the tape?
Yeah, I have
like,
labels I'm putting
okay.
on the tape so I can know later. This person was huge into Sci-Fi Channel and then like Buffy and a lot of 90s sci-fi stuff, X-Files, tons of X-Files. But so
have you seen unfortunately, if I'm breaking the news to you, I'm sorry, but Alex Trebek has passed. But there's been a lot of really cool stuff on Twitter where people are like paying tribute to him and stuff. Mm-hmm. And someone did a clip of one of the Celebrity Jeopardies, and it has Stephen King and David Duchovny. They're the only two that speak. But did you see this?
No.
So I don't remember what the question or what the answer was, but it was Stephen King or David Duchovny picked the topic. Stephen King answers it. What are frogs?
Uh-huh.
And you just hear David Duchovny go, "What are frogs?" That's so funny. All right.
That's great.
All right, so now we're all caught up with each other. So I figured, with these new consoles coming out, today really, the ninth generation of video game consoles have come out with the Series X and the PS5 launching in 2 days. And so I just figured we'd take a look back at some system launches and some of the best games that we think are the best games that launched day and date with the console. So launch titles and that kind of thing. So I assume, I think everybody knows how much I love video games. It was really hard for me not to pull out a bunch of different systems. Luckily, since I got this today, I didn't have room, but I wanted to put out some of the stuff that we're going to talk about because I look at a video game system as like a collectible in terms of like something like a statue or figure or something like that. Like I don't have my bar set up yet, but like in those cases that I have, I'm going to have like each console like displayed like it would be a statue or something. And so I wanted to do that here because to me, video game consoles have a huge place in my heart. And I assume you're the same way, Preston, right? You buy all these consoles day and date, don't you?
Hey, the consoles of my youth definitely hold a huge place in my heart, and I have a large collection of SNES games, of NES games, and then I even have like my original box. I don't know what happened to the dang system, but somehow I still have the box to my Genesis,
Nice.
and I've got that displayed with all of my cool stuff. So yeah, I don't have quite as much as you, but definitely a place in my heart.
Yeah. So what is your? I'm going to show you something,
Okay.
and you just tell me. This is like picture association. Okay. All right. So we're gonna. Boom.
I just found that this week, man. Yeah. So what you were looking at is typical Preston. I am never an early adopter. So here I am holding my brand new to me PlayStation 2, and this was in like 2002, and I rewarded myself after my first big career paycheck. So I had just graduated college, having worked at the Blockbuster for a few years, and checked out all these games to people, and being jealous of the PS2. I rented it a couple times for sure, but never owned it. And so my first job as a teacher, I had my first paycheck, and I treated myself to a PS2.
In the background, that piano, is that the piano you still own?
Yeah, I don't like go through pianos.
Oh,
like
come
you go
on.
through game console systems.
So one of the coolest things about your job at Blockbuster was the cool cases that these consoles came in.
I know. I should have thought to like keep some of those, but yeah, those command a high dollar now.
Yeah. I the 3DO that I currently have is not my original 3DO. I suckered some pawn shop guy because he saw it said Panasonic on it, and he was like, "Oh," because I think he must have thought it was the PlayStation, because it was around the time like the PlayStation 2 like had just come out or something, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and gave me a lot of money for it, and so I couldn't pass it up. But the 3DO I have now is in one of those cases. I bought it on eBay. I don't know if this is true, but the guy said he was a Blockbuster manager, and that it had never been played before, that he always bought, like he would keep one off the side for him to own because he was a collector. And so that's supposedly my 3DO had never been played before, but it's in that case. My Virtual Boy is also in one of those cases.
That's awesome.
So I love those cases. Those are the best. But
Man, it was a pain in the butt to rent those things out. You had to do so much paperwork in case people broke them.
yeah, I know I checked out or rented I think before I owned a Genesis, I rented them a couple times. So, but yeah, that was awesome. I loved that back then. So it's a shame people don't have the ability to do that now. All right. So we are going to talk about the launches of consoles, the games that tie with them. Sometimes those are amazing things. Unfortunately, though, sometimes those can lead to bad things.
I think when Yogi said fork in the road, he meant opportunity. When he sees opportunity, he takes it. So do we. We're taking all the opportunities we can to make this business soar. And since I began my remarks with an announcement, I may as well finish with another. We started our rollout of Sega Saturn yesterday. We're at retail today in 1,800 Toys R Us, software, etc., and electronic boutique stores around the U.S. and Canada. Our retail price is between $3.99 and $4.49. We have 10 software titles at retail in the next few days, 20 by August. Our total rollout will take the summer to complete, but we're starting today in store and starting today on primetime TV with these commercials. Sega Saturn is not only here now, it's out there. Thanks. It's been an honor.
All right, so that was Tom Kalinske. This is the very first ever E3. Okay, so that's why the camera. E3 was not always the production that people have come to know.
That was so
about.
old. It was just E2.
Yeah. It was when dinosaurs were walking the earth. But yeah, so E3 was originally just a trade show, right? And so it was just people, or not people, but CEOs and that kind of thing, basically just talking to retailers and press about whatever their new product was.
Industry folks.
Yes. And Man, this is like the beginning of the end of the Saturn. So it was supposed to come out later in the year. And basically what happened is they announced it. They had already announced the system, but at E3 they showed off all the advertisements and like commercials and stuff like that. And they figured, hey, you know what? We're going to generate a lot of excitement about this thing at E3, and we're going to get people excited about it. We're going to instead of releasing it later in the year during the holiday season, like we said we were going to, we're going to release it today. And the problem with that is retailers were not ready. Like you heard in that clip, they had Toys R Us, Software Etc.,
Electronics Boutique,
EB. Yeah, those were the only companies that got this console because they weren't ready. They didn't have warehouses full of them. Video game publishers were not ready to get their games out because originally it was supposed to come out September 2nd. And then instead they put it out during the summer, so like earlier in the year. So that was just like the first misstep that Sega made with this console. You know, leading up to it, there's a lot of stuff. Check out, there's a Netflix documentary about video games, and they talk a lot about like the Sega CD, the 32X, and like how Sega of Japan and Sega of America were like trying to, the Saturn was coming, and so all these other stopgaps in between the way, you know, to try to ward off their competition.
And simultaneously, if you look at CBS All Access, you can watch a documentary series called Console Wars, which Tom Kalinske is a key player in that. And this is the look between the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo and the wars they had, based off a book by Blake. Oh, I made it. Anyway, there's this book by the same name called Console Wars. But you should check out the miniseries that's now on CBS All Access.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was a crazy thing. I mean, nowadays that's exciting at E3 when like Nintendo announces a game and then it's out that day for you to download. That's cool.
Yeah.
But man, like Sega just alienated all their retail partners because it was only these three partners that got product. And so a lot of retailers actually just stopped carrying Sega products altogether because of it. So...
Yes, I never got into that one. I don't think I ever really even played one back in its heyday. It was just a blip, a flash in the pan.
Yeah. So, Sega though is not the only company to have a pretty bad system launch. Sometimes even the big boys fall down. It's gonna be you. I knew that was gonna happen as soon as I did it. Here it is.
He had the moves, the punches, the fire. But there was one thing he would never have. A way out. Virtual Boy presents more challenges inside the third dimension. Mario Tennis, Tunnel Boxer, Red Alarm, Galactic Pinball. Virtual Boy, a 3D game for a 3D world. Wanna play?
So, man, the Virtual Boy. I love this console, but it is Nintendo's biggest failure. And it's something that they wouldn't even talk about for a long time. I have upstairs, I meant to bring it. It is a like lenticular pen from when they were going around doing a mall tour showing off the Virtual Boy before it came out. When I was a kid, I was just into this product. And man, I love VR now, and the development of the Virtual Boy is so crazy because Nintendo wanted to create a VR headset. And what they did is they had talked to this company about producing it that was making that kind of thing, but the cost of a color display was astronomical at the time. And so the company also, they recommended using a red on black because it's the highest contrast for what they were using, the type of technology they were using, and it would create a better 3D effect.
Yeah,
right?
and burn your retinas.
Well, I've never had an issue with it, but when like they showed it off at CES,
People's eyeballs were melting.
Yeah, January 6, 1995. They showed it off at CES, and people came away from that with really negative things to say about it giving them headaches while they were using it. It's awkward to use because you're putting your face into it, like you're not strapping it on.
Yeah.
And so like it's not like a handheld console that is portable. You have to set it up and then look into it.
It's crazy that they didn't think to just have a head strap to it.
Well,
you know?
at one point they actually were going to do that, but the weight of it was hard in order for them to be able to set it up in a way that didn't have too much weight to make it uncomfortable to do it. That's why they had the stand for it. But you know, being a kid, I was fine with that. Like, hey, I'm willing to have some sort of uncomfortableness when I'm doing something if I think that thing is super cool.
I'm willing to give myself a physical deformity in order to play this video game.
Hey, I think glasses are cool. I'm going to shoot myself in the eye with laser tag guns until I need them. Gosh darn it. So basically, Nintendo kind of had high hopes for this thing. It was at the time groundbreaking, you know. So they projected in America, in North America only, 1.5 million units being sold, with 2.5 units of software being sold with it by the end of the year. And then they had only shipped 350,000 units by the end of December of that year. And that's not even sold through rate. That's just shipped to retailers. And so, you know, that was 3.5 months worth of time that this was on the market. That would be the hottest time of the year. And this thing was barely moving. So,
I mean, it was, you know, for what it did, it was more of a novelty thing, but yet they were charging you essentially a full system price. So it was, you know, it was $179 at launch. And, you know, that's what you could get basically a Super Nintendo for. So
yeah, but so one of the caveats of this system is it was a 32-bit system. Yes, 32-bit, because this came out after the Super Nintendo, right? And technically this is Nintendo's 32-bit console because it's not a handheld. And you know, people that played this game, like reviewers and that kind of thing, there was the PlayStation, the Sony PlayStation was on the horizon, and just the graphical quality of this headset was not nearly as good as what people were hearing about the PlayStation, and so it was kind of like a non-starter. But yeah, it came out on the last game for it came out on March 22nd, 1996. So the system had been out for like a year and a half, maybe like closer to a year at this point. And then they killed it that year. And in June of 96, Nintendo reported that the worldwide sales of the Virtual Boy were only 770,000 units. And 140,000 of those were in Japan. So,
wow.
Boy, like it wasn't really until recently that Nintendo has really talked about this failure. And I think that they have the ability with things like Smash Brothers, like how they incorporate their history into games. I think they really have a cool ability to be able to kind of poke fun at the Virtual Boy. You know, one of the reasons I had planned on bringing it out was because I was going to like talk about the controller a little bit. Like when you look at Nintendo's designs, you see how those designs impact their future projects, right? And so like the most obvious thing is like the Wii U to the Switch, right?
Sure.
But like that controller is really a Nintendo 64 controller. And so like it's just really neat to like look at how that stuff carries over. But you know, like not everybody can win big. Nowadays, we don't have the wars against Sega and Nintendo where they're talking trash the whole time. Sometimes Sony talks trash about Xbox because they did so poorly last generation, Gen 8. You know, they started doing this whole thing where, hey, we love everybody. We're friends with Nintendo, we're friends with Sony, and you know, you see that today with the launch of the Xbox Series X and Series S. You know, Microsoft did a thing on Twitter, and then I think a little tongue-in-cheek, Sony did a friendship fatality from Mortal Kombat 11, a GIF on their timeline.
That's funny.
And so, like, oh, it's a friendship thing, but really, like, we're killing you. So, but, it's exciting to see these companies. Basically, it's not like it used to be, and so having it a little bit more open and a little bit more excited. And I think that really goes a long way into making the whole hobby really cool, like getting that kind of stuff. So I do think that that's really interesting. That
Time to play the game.
What is that? Brian, do you know what time it is?
is it time to play the game?
It's time to play this episode's game. That was scary. I didn't know that was happening. Okay, so I told Brian to cue up a sound effect for me when it was time for the game, and he picked that. What the heck was that?
That's Triple H's. The song is a Motorhead song, but it's Triple H's intro to the ring.
I could see Brian's screen, and I thought he was going to do a transition to something, and then it just burst in there. So it got me. You got me good, bro. All right, so we haven't played a little game in a while. This is for all the marbles. Brian, in honor of launch day, I thought we could do some launch day rankings, or rather ordering,
Okay.
based on the cost of the system, adjusted for inflation. Okay, so I'm going to give you the dates, the system, the date, and the cost.
Okay.
For all the things that we're going to be talking about today. So this, if you need some help, I'll be able to help you out because there's a little bit here. But all right, so in no particular order, right now, the Nintendo Entertainment System launched in '88, and the Action Pack cost $149. Okay.
Okay.
Genesis '89, it cost $189. Super Nintendo was in 1991, it cost $199. Game Boy was in '89, it cost $89. Dreamcast was '99, it cost $199. Virtual Boy was 1995, it was $179. And then Atari Jaguar in 1993 was $249 at launch.
Okay.
So what I would like you to do is, in order of least to greatest cost, order these at their adjusted cost for inflation.
Okay. So I just want to get the console straight. We have NES, SNES,
Yep.
Game Boy, Dreamcast, and Jaguar.
Yes, and Virtual Boy. You say Virtual Boy.
Virtual Boy. Okay. Okay. So least, you automatically want to go with Game Boy because it was so cheap. It was so cheap. My older sister was dating a guy, and he wanted to get on her good side, so he bought me a Game Boy.
Whoa.
And she made him return it.
Oh, no.
Because I already had one.
Oh,
I will
okay.
take another Game Boy. the screens, you leave them in the car, and the screens get lines on them.
Do you know how much I could sell this for at recess?
All right, so you want to say that just because it was so cheap. You got to think, though, the more recent consoles have a lower adjusted inflation. But I'm going to say Game Boy was the cheapest. And are you going to tell me yes or no as I go? Or
Sure.
Okay. Was Game Boy the cheapest?
Game Boy was the cheapest.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right.
At it sold in 1989 for $89, and the current cost today would be $191.29.
Okay. Okay. So the next ones were what? The NES,
Genesis, Super Nintendo, Dreamcast, Virtual Boy, Jaguar.
Okay. So the I'm going to say the next cheapest one is Dreamcast.
Okay. Very close.
Oh.
No cigar. The next one was the Virtual Boy.
Wow.
In 1995, it cost $179, and today's inflation adjusted cost would be $309.89. So that puts it at number 2, but you were very close.
So
because
then
number 3
yes, is Dreamcast.
Dreamcast in 1999 sold for $199, and today it would be a cost of $315.25. That's
crazy to think $20 across what you said, 5 years, right? 95 to 99, or
so
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
$20. Okay. Well, then I'm going to say the next one is going to be the Jaguar.
No, sir. No. The next one. Do you want to know the next one, or do you want to try to take another guess?
My next guess, because the only ones left are NES, SNES, and Jaguar, right?
NES, Genesis, SNES, and Jaguar.
Oh, okay. So then my next one would be, I was gonna say NES. But then kind of Genesis is like a couple years newer and almost the same price. I'm gonna go Genesis. I'm gonna say Genesis.
You should have gone with your first instinct. It was NES. NES Action Pack came out in 1988 for $149, and today it would be $335.19. So, it's you see these different costs, $149, blah blah blah, but we're essentially hovering around the 300 something mark for systems, and it's maintained that cost. So, yeah,
there are some outliers, like throughout the years there have been incredibly expensive systems.
So you're operating at 50% right now. You're 2 for 4.
Okay, well then the next one I'm going to go with is Genesis.
You're wrong.
Oh, Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo. It came out in '91 at $199, and today that would be $384.81.
Okay, so then Genesis.
Correct. It came out in '89, and it was $189. But back in '89, $189 would be like $406 today.
That's crazy.
It is, isn't it?
Wait. I thought the Genesis came out before the Super Nintendo.
It did. Nintendo was 91. Genesis was 89.
And how much was the Genesis?
Genesis was $189.
And how much was the Super Nintendo?
$199.
Oh, it was because it's older. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it costs more.
All right. So now the Jaguar.
So, yep. So you were still, you were 50-50, but the Jaguar is going to put you on the winning side. The Jaguar is and was the most expensive system. In 1993, it cost a whopping $249. Which was the highest at the time, and today that would be like spending $454.49. Brian, you only got slightly more than half right, but we're going to give it to you as the win. Congratulations,
Yay!
Brian. You're the console master.
Nice. Well, that is super exciting for me. We are going to talk about the Jaguar some more on the show, but first we're going to talk about this.
Will you be the one to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? The one to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot, batteries not included. He helps you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt or action-packed Hogan's Alley and high-flying Kung Fu, each sold separately? Will you be the one to experience the Nintendo Entertainment System? Comes with Rob, Zapper, Control Deck, 2 controllers, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt.
Man, that was the deluxe system. I never had that. I never had the robot and the 2 games and all this. I got the control deck and a game.
I had a friend that had that set.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the reason we're doing that is not to talk about the launch of it like Brian was talking about the other systems. I wanted to talk about, I thought from here on out we could look at our favorite launch day titles. I asked you earlier about the Xbox and the PlayStation and what games they're having with launch, and you were saying not many. And I was surprised to learn that some of these systems from back in the day didn't actually launch with that many either. But Nintendo Entertainment System, it launched with a whopping 17 titles. And most people can recognize those easily because those are the ones that came in the standard format template box. The black box with the little graphic and then the side scroll. It's very iconic. But after that, for the most part, the Nintendo games that were released had unique and custom artwork and so forth. But so without cheating and looking at the list, do you know some of the titles that launched besides Super Mario Brothers?
Well, off the top of my head, I would obviously Duck Hunt and Gyromite.
Yeah.
Because those were, part of that whole thing. I would have. So I did look at the list because I was trying to think.
Okay, well,
but I forgot if golf was on there. Golf is on there. So golf I knew was one of the original ones.
Okay, so for those of you playing along at home, See if you would have gotten all of these in your list. All right, so 10-Yard Fight, baseball, Clue Clue Land. What is even that? What is that?
I don't know. Was this a North American game?
I thought so.
I don't know.
That one's suspect. Maybe
I'm gonna say Clue makes me think of cloud people, so maybe they look like clouds.
Maybe I got my sources wrong on this one. Duck Hunt, Excite Bike, Golf, Gyromite, Hogan's Alley, Ice Climber, Kung Fu, Mock Rider, Pinball, Stack Up. That's another one. I don't know. This is suspect. Super Mario Brothers, Tennis, Wild Gunman, and Wrecking Crew. So the system came out in test markets in New York City, and maybe other test markets in 1985 in October, but it wouldn't be until 1986 in September that it would release nationwide. But when it did launch, it had those 17 games.
Mm-hmm.
So
how many of those games did you own?
I owned Excite Bike, Kung Fu, Super Mario Brothers, and that's probably all of the. I probably owed 10-Yard Fight.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only ones that I actually owned.
I think on top of you, I owned I owned Duck Hunt, and then I owned Pinball.
Yeah, look at that. And now you own a real pinball, Brian. It happened for you.
Yeah, but I also love digital pinball, and that's probably where that stems from.
That's great. So I thought it'd be fun to debate our picks for what do you think was the best launch title that's included.
I mean, it's got to be Mario Brothers, right? Like, if you want to put like impact that the game had. So the thing with Mario that I think is really cool is that Miyamoto, his whole thing with creating games, and this started with Donkey Kong with him. He felt like the characters you played as in games were very basic, and you didn't build a bond with them because they had no expressions, right? Like they were very simple characters. And so his thing was he wanted to make bigger characters that you could animate better and have a connection with based off of their expressions and their emotions, right? And so that's what Donkey Kong was. That was like their first big game that had that, right? Like Donkey Kong is so he emotes so vividly, right? And from there you just carry on Jumpman and into Mario Brothers, and he maintained that same thing, and that I think that's why Mario Brothers is still relevant today. Is because of that foresight into trying to have that connection with your game character, and because of that, like it has to be Mario. But if I'm just gonna go based off of something that I would go back to today, I really like Excite Bike. Like when I was a kid, I'd always play it in the Play Choice 10 at the Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And I would love a good Excite Bike game today. But I don't know what that looks like because they've made like, I think Excite Bike 64 was a realistic take on it. I'm not really looking for that. Like I want a cartoony type of thing. So.
Well, I knew you were going to say Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
And I honestly agree with you. But to be a contrarian, and to offer up a different point of view, I would say that on par with it is probably Duck Hunt, just because it was so unique in its own novelty. It has almost as much recognition, and it had the gun, right? So it had an iconic element of gameplay that was the first to establish this, and a home system, right?
Right.
A light zapper gun, this was the first time that we had something like that, right?
No, there was the Intellivision, or there were earlier consoles that had
a light gun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but this was the first one that made it big, like as it came with the console, right? And so it was more than just that one game. In fact, you have Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley. I guess those may have been the only two games that launched with it, but you had two launch games. Oh yeah, Wild Gunman. You had three launch games that use that gun. You know.
Very smart. So I definitely think Super Mario Brothers holds its title as the best launch title, but that was pretty significant for there to be 17 of those available on launch. All told, the Nintendo Entertainment System would have 715 total games released across the world, 677 of those in North America. So if you're a collector, you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, I think about big console launches, and the NES really brought it back from the brink, from what ended from the way Atari ended everything, and that's why it came with so much garbage, like you saw in that commercial. Was Nintendo had to sell it as a toy, not as a video game console, because no one wanted to buy video game consoles.
Right.
So, man, Nintendo, they have some major grand slams sometimes.
They said it wasn't humanly possible, but now you can have all the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy. It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games are interchangeable. Plus, Game Boy comes with the outrageous new game, Tetris. And for head-to-head competition, use the revolutionary video link and blow your opponent away. Game Boy, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, portable power.
The cover art on that box for that system is totally my aesthetic.
Yeah,
I
dude.
love that look.
How badass is that system? That thing rules, and I am so jealous of all the kids that got that one. That was one that I always wanted, but I never, ever got. To this day, I have never owned a Game Boy.
Well, the Game Boy was a big deal. I specifically remember when I got the Game Boy, it was a Christmas present, and my mom spent the entire we went to North Carolina. She spent that entire vacation playing Tetris on it nonstop. I almost lost my foot because I went outside and it was snowy and my boot came off in a hole in the ground, and I had to walk up this mountain in just my sock, and it was bad. But my mom loved Tetris. So, man, the Game Boy, it came out July 31st of 89 in North America. And I don't know if you know this, Preston, but it was discontinued March 23rd of 2003.
Wow, the original. Good grief!
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, the sales worldwide were 118.69 million sales. It had only 5 release titles: Alleyway, Baseball, Super Mario Land, Tennis, and Tetris. But over the course of its lifetime, it had over 1,000 titles released. 1,056 titles to be exact.
That's nuts. Which had a longer life, do you think? The original Game Boy or the Nintendo DS? Because DS was out for a hot minute too.
Yeah, so I bet you the DS is still, like, the reason that that's 2003 is because some countries they continue to sell them in those regions because people still buy it due to the cost of it because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
And I know the PS2, it was only a couple years ago that Sony stopped making PS2s.
Yeah.
Because they were still selling like in Brazil or whatever, so like and so that's why it's like that. I bet you there's still DSs being made because I mean the 3DS was out for a while, and
I just know that I'm talking about North America.
Oh, North America?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, like 2000 let's say 2010.
I think it was longer than that.
You think so? Because
Yeah.
it came out in 04. Came out in 04.
My kids had a DS.
Yeah, because I remember when the DS came out, and I want to say it was 04.
Okay.
And then when did your kids get it?
Oh, they didn't get it till like 2012.
12?
Yeah.
New?
I don't know. Probably.
Well, that would have been like a DSi.
Oh my gosh, you're getting in the weeds.
DSi XL.
Oh my gosh, Brian, such a dork.
So, so out of those 5 games, I had Baseball, Super Mario Land, Tetris. My favorite out of those was Super Mario Land, solely because the music in that game is so good. And it's cool, like that game is still really popular in the speedrunning community. And so if you go on YouTube, there's some really great videos of people speedrunning that game. I suggest checking it out because that way you get to hear all the music in the game fairly quickly. So which one of these games do you think was the best?
See, this is another one where, like, I'm glad you had something to offer up because it's obvious what the best game was, and that, of course, is Tetris.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so iconic and has such a history. I've promoted the book before, all about its history, and it's just known everywhere. It's such a great game. It's iconic.
Yeah, and it's still a game that is being produced today on the Xbox Series X. One of the launch titles it's not exclusive to Series X, but one of the launch titles is Tetris Effect Connected.
Wow.
And Tetris Effect came out on PS5 a couple years ago. It's a VR game and regular game. That game is amazing. And if you got a Series X, you should get Tetris Effect Connected, because the music, oh man, if you've played Rez, what else has Mizuguchi made? I can't remember. But if you've played Rez was an amazing game. The music's so good. Tetris Effect's the same thing. So check that out.
Marble SFA says he had a Game Boy back in the 90s, and the first game he played was Tetris, but he also loves Centipede and Jeff Gordon Racing.
Nice. The Game Boy Color. So those numbers that I quoted also took into account Game Boy Color.
Okay.
So because it was part of the Game Boy family. But
all right.
Just like the DSi was part of the DS family. So
being a little generous. Okay, we'll give it.
All right. Well, we so far we've been giving Nintendo some love, and so why don't we spread that around a little bit?
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing, feeling, when you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come: the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
I thought we were gonna give somebody else some love.
Gotcha.
So that was the Super Nintendo launch, of course. Now, what's notable about that commercial is, did you recognize the actor?
Oh, I know who it is.
Okay, so if you were watching along, or if you were just listening, you're gonna have to go check it out, because that is starring Paul Rudd. Ant-Man himself is in that commercial. So the Super Nintendo Entertainment System came out August 23rd, 1991. Now, unlike NES, which had 17 launch titles, the Super Nintendo, and this is before we had backward compatibility and stuff like that, this system only launched with 5, count them, 5 titles. And those 5 titles were Super Mario World, F-Zero, Pilot Wings, Gradius 3, and SimCity.
They're all bangers.
Those are, yeah, legit classics, iconic. Although I don't know if I pick out Gradius 3 compared to something else, but
a lot of those games look the same.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, is that R-Type? Or
right.
All right. Which of those 5s, without saying Super Mario World, which of those 5s is the best one?
Hands down, F-Zero.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We can agree, because that one, you got to think, this was before they had Mario Kart, right?
Yes, this was Mario Kart was on Super Nintendo
but
first.
It was later.
Right,
yeah,
it was later.
So this was so much fun to get on launch, because you could go head to head with someone, and it was fast paced. It had cool courses. It was futuristic. You hadn't seen anything like that before. It was really fast. So, I mean, much love to Super Mario World, and it was really iconic, and it looked really good and had stuff, but it was more of the same, I thought, as compared to F-Zero, which was something completely different that I had not seen before. So I loved it.
I will say that Pilot Wings was a game that I played a ton on it.
Oh, so
just
good.
Because the games didn't home consoles didn't have that look. Like, it made like a 3D environment, right? And so like when you were skydiving or flying your plane, like it was a cool 3D effect that they were using in that game. I always thought that it was very challenging to land on the target and stuff like that. I really like Pilot Wings. But F-Zero, I feel like Nintendo is doing gamers dirty.
Why?
Because they don't care about F-Zero. And I understand Mario Kart exists, but man, the best F-Zero game was the GameCube F-Zero. The arcade one's pretty good too. But man, it's so good. It's so fast. There's such a huge roster. And now all they're doing is just incorporating F-Zero stages into Mario Kart, and that's their solution for solving that problem.
Boo.
Yeah.
No,
so,
it could be raining more money on them.
I know.
If they would just do that.
Man, F-Zero, I love that game.
Yeah, we got to play that, me and you. We go head to head. Maybe we'll stream some of that sometime.
Okay. Yeah.
So just to close it out with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, they launched with 5 titles, but total titles released around the world, a whopping 1,756 titles. Now, only 718 of those were North American releases, but still 718.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a lot. Quite a lot. Super Nintendo, way to go.
Yeah. I think they really knocked it out of the park with that. I had a really good segue here.
Hey, you know what?
Oh, okay.
Here's a good segue for you. Why don't we look? We've been looking at some great Nintendo titles,
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo systems. Let's see what Nintendo don't.
This is the day you have trained for. The day you have studied for. Utilize your superior skills. Your superior intelligence.
Sit down, rodent.
Oh, you were one.
Don't make me hurt you.
Learn to defeat your ruthless enemy, Steve of Hackensack.
Brian, you're gonna get roofed.
Shut up, quadruped.
Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
All right, baby, Sega Dreamcast. They had one of the best release dates ever. 9/9/99. Man,
good.
it very rarely lines up like that. So the Sega,
I would say it lines up like that once in a century.
yeah, but not where it's like a release date. Like that had to have been like a Friday or a Tuesday.
Once in a
you know?
millennium, I dare say.
Oh, maybe. But you have that console came out 9/9/99 off the heels of the travesty that was the Saturn, and I loved the Dreamcast personally. It didn't have a very long run. It was discontinued March 31st of 2011. Or I'm sorry, 2001. That would have been an awesome run. March 31st, 2001. But it had a worldwide sales of 9.13 million. It did have quite a few North American release titles. You had Kart, Flag to Flag, Hydro Thunder, Tokyo Extreme Racer, Aero Wings, Air Force Delta, Trick Style, Blue Stinger, NFL 2K, Mortal Kombat Gold, Power Stone, Ready to Rumble Boxing, TNN Motorsports, Hardcore Heat, NFL Blitz 2000, Sonic Adventure, The House of the Dead 2, Soul Calibur, Pin, Tri-Isolon, Monaco Grand Prix Racing Simulation 2. So those were all the launch titles. So what, Preston, out of those do you recognize?
So I recognize a few of them for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hydro Thunder, because they had the arcade game.
Yep.
Aero Wings, NFL 2K,
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat. I don't know what differentiates it for the gold status.
It had, I think it was every one. It was up through 3.
Okay. I only know Power Stone because you love that game.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize Ready to Rumble Boxing because I checked that out at the Blockbuster a lot to people. NFL Blitz 2000. I love that game. Sonic, I imagine that's a Sonic Adventure. I imagine is just a Sonic the Hedgehog game.
Yep.
I recognize Soul Calibur and then House of the Dead 2. So, I'm gonna let you say your favorite because I mean I can give you some titles, but I really didn't ever.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever played the Dreamcast.
It is tough for me. I'm going to go with Power Stone. I think that Power Stone is an amazing game, and that's why every year at SFGE, I have Power Stone in the Dreamcast because I want to share that love with everybody.
Do you think everybody else appreciates that?
I think so. Like if you go online and like search like Power Stone, like you'll find plenty of stuff where people are like, this is Capcom's biggest squander because they did 2 Power Stone games and they never really did anything else with it. So the thing with the Dreamcast that was so amazing, excuse me, I was in a car wreck. And a semi ran me off the road, big wreck. And so I got a nice insurance check. And I went looking at cars to buy a new car. And I found this.
You're like, who needs cars when there's a Dreamcast?
I found this Bronco 2. And it was this piece of crap car. But I loved it. It was a great car. But that left me with a lot of money to buy a Dreamcast and the majority of those titles.
Oh, my word.
So I played a lot of those a lot. I probably played House of the Dead 2 the most because you could map the controls on the controller, and so I would make every button reload except for like one button, and so you're just like going. It's like so you're just shooting a machine gun the whole time. So
that's great.
But yeah, I love that console.
So looking at these titles, one thing that I do think is interesting is how much this veered from the previous systems we looked at as far as the type of content available.
Mm-hmm.
Much more adult oriented. Not like mature titles necessarily, but just House of the Dead 2 is not Gyromite.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So and a lot of varied titles. So you got your sports games, you got your action games, skill games, fighting games. It's a little something for everybody. So I think I do appreciate the variety of offerings they have. If I were going to check one out, though, do I have a friend over?
Sure.
Okay. If it's going to be 2 players, then I'm definitely going to go with something with a sports game like NFL Blitz 2000, Mortal Kombat, and then but I'll give Soul Calibur a shot too. So
Soul Calibur would be most people's number 1 pick for this.
So I think Soul Calibur is probably where I'm leaning on as far as what I would be down with for a launch title pickup.
Nice. Yeah, so the Dreamcast, they ended its run with 620 titles released in North America. And I think it's cool that you talk about, the diversity of titles, a little something for everyone, because, Sega, they were always trying to be something for big kids, right? But their console launches weren't always that.
And so it was, late in the 20th century, that a pox fell upon the land, a plague of home videos that were limited in intelligence. There was brain drain, and terminal boredom swept the countryside. The maker looked down and was not pleased by what he saw, and said, "This is not good." And so it was, he brought forth Genesis, a system with twice the power, twice the intelligence, twice the challenge, twice the fun. Only a chosen few were called forth to experience this new dimension of high-definition graphics and stereo sound. And the maker saw what he had done and said, "Now that's not bad. Discover Genesis, and your world will never be the same."
Sega Genesis, a great system. One I owned, like I said at the top of the show. I still have the box for that one, even though something has stolen my memory of whatever happened to my system. I have no idea what happened to that system. If I'd let someone borrow it, I don't think anybody sold it. I have no idea. It's a mystery to me. But I love that system, and I got it pretty early. I don't think I got it on launch, but I definitely didn't get it at launch, because here's a fun fact: everyone associates the Sega Genesis with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Right.
And rightfully so. Sonic the Hedgehog is a great game. But shocked to learn when I did my research for this that Sonic the Hedgehog was not one of the launch titles for Genesis. And then it brought back a memory to me of KB Toys. And KB, they had the Genesis display system there, and they were always showing Altered Beast. And I would always play Altered Beast at the KB Toy store in the mall. And that was what was packaged with the original launch game system. But it launched in August 14th, 1989, and it had the following titles for launch: Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, which before today I have never heard of, Altered Beast, Last Battle, Space Harrier 2, Thunder Force 2, and Tommy Lasorda Basketball. So that was in 89, and Sonic the Hedgehog, it wasn't included until 1991 as the pack-in game.
Yeah.
So,
out of those games, Preston, which one is it for you?
I mean, they called it right with the pack-in. It's going to be Altered Beast, even though the sound is annoying.
Oh no, I think so. The sound I think is fine, but that's like the sound of the Genesis is such an important sound, and you see it. It is well displayed in that game, like the grunginess, like when like the that happens in Altered Beast itself, like when you're getting hit, like that thing, or when you're punching things. Like I don't remember what they called it, but the sound chip that they used in the Genesis was awesome for creating like weird basses, and some like Streets of Rage is well known for its soundtrack, largely due to this. So. But Altered Beast is a garbage game, and I dare you to go back and play it today, because you will hate your life. Because
no, it's awful. We have it on loop at when we display for SFGE. It's one of the games. It was a Sega 16 arcade system game.
Yeah,
and it gets you really want to kill yourself if you leave on the attract mode on that one, because it is rough.
Space Harrier 2, that's your game.
Yeah,
that's the game for that launch. The reason they packed in Altered Beast is because it was an arcade game and they were trying to show, hey, you can bring the arcade game home, right? And so I understand the marketing behind that, but Space Harrier 2, that's the game you want in that lineup.
So total titles released for that one were 713. I couldn't find a source for how many of those were strictly North American releases, but that's kind of on par with what we've been looking at for other systems, so very respectable. One thing that's interesting, though, is that Genesis, because it launched in 89, even though the Super Nintendo launched 2 years later in 91, it still beat out the Super Nintendo for 2 more years at Christmas time, just because they had that built-in library of games. So people were more inclined to go ahead and buy something that had so much variety available to them, as compared to the brand new Super Nintendo.
Yeah. The on top of that, it was new, right? Like, people had a Nintendo, and so like there's news reports, or like they're interviewing parents and stuff, and they're like, I don't understand why they're coming out with another Nintendo. And so like because of that, people are willing to try out other things because they're like, man, the Nintendo's fun. I don't want another Nintendo. Let me try this other thing. So a company that helped to shape video games and then died off and almost ruined them, they tried to make a comeback, and people could not buy into that either.
Some of you believe your system is the most advanced in the universe. Let's review the numbers. Sega Genesis is 16 bits. 3DO is 32 bits. The Atari Jaguar is 64 bits. Which is more advanced? Clifford! 16 and 32 are less than 64. So with 64 bits, 3D graphics, real-world animation, and lightning speed that you can only get with Jaguar, which is more advanced? Clifford!
Can you repeat the question?
Jaguar! Jaguar! Jaguar!
The Atari Jaguar, released November 23rd, 1993. It was discontinued 3 years later, so it had a fairly good run in terms of like a side console. Most consoles back then, were roughly 4 years long. So, but they had less than 250,000 units sold. And some of these consoles,
I know why.
Why?
One, it was expensive as hell, and two, their controller was the worst controller.
It was pretty bad.
Ergonomics on that controller are the pits.
But Preston, 64 is way better than everything else.
Than 32. They were confusing me with that math. I was like, why do you have to try so hard to do that? You're just confusing everybody.
Well, see, that's the problem with that marketing campaign, is that was geared towards gamers, And so, and if you read gaming magazines back then, the Genesis and the Super Nintendo were 16-bit. You had from that, the next, like, she mentioned the 3DO. The 3DO was a 32-bit console. It was the first 32-bit console. And then the Jaguar was the first 64-bit console. But it wasn't really. And I don't know if you saw from that commercial, but like the games didn't really look like, if you think of like the Nintendo 64 and that kind of thing, like how big of a leap that was, those games did not look like the Nintendo 64. And it's because it actually had two 32-bit processors. And so they said it was a 64-bit a 64-bit console because there was two 32-bit processors in it.
Liars.
But, yeah. That game system also only had 3 releases at launch.
Wow.
You had Cybermorph, Raiden, and Trevor McFur in the Crescent Galaxy.
What? These are some crazy names. Like the first, when Sega Genesis, Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, and now Trevor McFur in the Crescent Galaxy.
Yeah. Well,
what the crap?
Alex Kidd's a pretty big video game character, so you watch your mouth. But
all right, well, what about Trevor McFur?
Maybe he's like Conker's like grandfather or something. But man, Cybermorph was so bad of a game, and I couldn't tell you what Trevor McFur is about off the top of my head. The clear choice is Raiden. And that is the reason I bought this console.
Really?
Oh man, Raiden was one of my favorite arcade games.
Yes.
And at this point there wasn't a way to play that at home. It came out on the PlayStation, but I don't think it was out on PlayStation at the.
But we're talking the original Raiden?
Yeah.
Like, the original Raiden, when did that come out? That came out in, like, the 80s.
Yeah, but home consoles couldn't play that game.
Oh, okay.
So, and, man, I love that game. Raiden is, like, to this day, Raiden series is one of my favorite series. So,
shmup.
But, yeah, over those 3 years, they came out with 50 titles. 44 of them came out during those 3 years, and then after they discontinued the Atari Jaguar, there was 6 more titles that came out. But the Atari Jaguar is still alive and breathing today, Preston.
How's that?
The homebrew community loves the Jaguar. And there are still people making Jaguar games to this day, and making the cartridges, and you can buy them online and stuff like that. So the Jaguar lives on, and I'm sad that mine doesn't work. It's a good candidate for the case.
I wonder if you could buy it now for cheaper than you could buy it back then.
No.
No? How much do they sell for now?
They're pretty like consoles like that were not huge. It's like
I bet you could get it for cheaper than $454.49.
Well, that's not how much it cost back then.
That's how much it was worth,
right?
Compared to today's dollars.
My dad bought it back then.
Whoa,
not me.
Your dad was a baller.
But yeah, so I think going out on the Atari is a big one,
dude. Well, I think those are great ones. Obviously, we didn't go through every system. I only did the ones that I grew up with, so I picked out the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. Brian went with some other ones, but there's a whole bevy of ones that we didn't cover. I'm curious to look at. I should have looked back at the Atari and see what kind of launch titles they had, but I'm very glad that we could have this topic of conversation for our episode tonight, because it's very rarely that Brian can just own the room with his knowledge. And I'm sure when this topic came up, you're like, yes, hands down, we will do this one. So if you have something that we didn't talk about that you thought we should talk about, let us know. If you argue with us on what our favorite launch day titles are, what should be the best launch day title, let us know. And we're also curious to hear, even though we're retro, we're curious to hear what you think about the new console system. So if you got a brand new PlayStation this week or Xbox this week, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that system, so Brian can tell you you're wrong.
I won't tell you you're wrong unless you say the PS5 controller's bad. I haven't even touched it yet. I know it's amazing. So, but we really appreciate you guys checking out the show, and we also really appreciate our patrons. So I said that weird. So if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Wayback Attack. Just like Ryan Nelson and Kevin Mann.
Yep. And thanks for, join the crew that is helping put on the show with Patreon. A lot of great perks on the show. We are due for a bonus show here in just a few days, I think. So stick around and check out those perks, and thanks for checking out the show, regardless of whether you're a patron or not. But we hope you choose to be one.
Yes. It goes a long way into helping us out in order to do more stuff for the show, and to to help make the things happen. So outside of patreon.com/Wayback Attack, you can find the show on Twitter at Wayback_Attack. You can find myself at BE Grantham. Preston, where can people find you?
I am at Squared Stiff on Twitter, and you can find us on YouTube. You can also email us, waybackattackshow@gmail.com. And, we'll be back in 2 weeks. So we'll have another great topic. If you have an idea for the show, let us know. Hope to hear from you.
Yes, please let us know, because we love hearing from you guys, and it's always fun to figure out what we're doing together. So we'll thank you for voting, and we'll see you next time.